I do this as a living for the last, decades, right? Helping leaders and companies find clarity in their messaging, working out the narratives. And yet, when I stepped out on my own, I was in a little bit of a crisis. Who am I? How do I introduce myself? Honestly, that was what I said for months.
So when someone comes to you and says, Naeema, I'm leaving my corporate career after many years, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to describe myself. How do you work with them?
You have to tear down the corporate crutches that you have built your career on. AI can't define you for you. They can only help you refine what you have defined. What will make you feel whole?
Let's zoom through. Welcome to the Experience Exchange, the podcast for people who've spent decades building careers and are now asking, what's next? I'm Pippa Woodhead. In this series, we're having honest conversations about second acts, what it takes to reinvent yourself, how to rebuild credibility without the title, and why your experience still matters even when everything feels different. Let's get started. If you've ever wondered, who am I without a company behind me? Or how do I introduce myself without the job title? This episode is for you. Today on the Experience Exchange, we're talking about messaging in your second act, what it takes to redefine your identity, your story, and your value after a long corporate career. We're joined by Naeema Ismail, formerly Asia-Pacific Managing Partner at Fin Partners, and now co-founder of The Reset and CEO of The Marketing Room. Naeema helps leaders and decision makers distill what they want to be known for, as well as help them prepare for crisis situations. In this conversation, we explore the identity reset that comes when the title disappears. Naeema will talk through a simple rhythm anyone can adopt to find clarity. So, Naeema, how did you first realize there was a gap for this with people starting a second act career?
Well, honestly, it all comes down to the fact that, I do this as a living for the last, decades, right? Helping leaders and companies find clarity in their messaging, working out the narratives. And yet, when I stepped out on my own, I was in a little bit of a crisis. Who am I?
Yeah.
How do I introduce myself? Honestly, that was what I said for months.
So when someone comes to you and says, Naeema, I'm leaving my corporate career after many years, I don't know what to do next. I don't know how to describe myself. How do you work with them?
I think of it as a simple rhythm that I apply in the work that I do at The Reset, right? Which is step back, step within, and step forward. I think a person needs to look at three things which has to be redefined. One is really their identity, right? Who do they want to be in this new role? And it is a new role, even though maybe it may not be with another corporate role, but maybe it's a business that they're building, or maybe it's a voluntary, or self-impact role that they are building for themselves. Next, who is the audience that they are serving, right? So usually it's a real shift from who they were serving when they had a corporate role, because it's a corporate role. When you get to a senior position, you have, yes, your external publics, but you also have your internal stakeholders, the people that you're serving internally. And then lastly, the outcomes that you will help companies or people get to. So these are three questions that you need to define to be able to help you then figure out how do you then come up with the introduction for yourself.
Yeah. Quite big questions, like the identity question is quite hard.
Yeah. So that's why, using with these three, parameters, then I apply the 3-step process, right? So stepping back. Now, stepping back is before all this, without all this noise and all the title and the branding behind you, what is it that you do, right? So that could be part of the case studies or your proof points, but it's not what you actually do. So it actually means that you have to peel back the layers and say, okay, when it comes to the crunch, when is it that people go to you? When do they call you for help? And what is it that you do to help in those situations? And it means maybe coming up with a list. It could be 5, could be 20, and then you'll start seeing a thread that comes through. Who is the target audience? And in marketing and PR, we always say, if you don't know who your target audience is, then you're not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
Lastly,
same in podcasting as well.
and lastly, on outcomes, right? So yes, what you do, but you also need to define what were the outcomes that you generated that because of you wouldn't have happened. And this is really hard because for all of us, we're so used to talking in that corporate we. And it's hard to then go back to, oh, I did this. What was the work that you did that impacted the company or the stakeholder? And that's the one that you want to capture. And those were some of the first things that I put down for myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so previously you'd be like, oh yeah, hi, I'm managing partner for Finn.
Yeah.
And now when someone says, oh, hi, nice to meet you, what do you say when they say,
first and
what do you do?
foremost, okay, I come up with something and it's still, it's still work in progress. But what I've been happy with in the last couple of weeks have been, I'm a narrative builder, right? And I help leaders, find clarity in what they want to say and who they want to say it to. And this applies in good times and bad times. So I also help them to prepare for crisis and moments when, shit hits the fan.
So that's quite intriguing. That then invites quite interesting follow-up questions.
Yes. The questions that I like to get after that is, oh, interesting. Why do you go into crisis? What do you mean by you get clarity for them? Then you can spin off to something interesting that hopefully they will find resonating for themselves.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, it's quite long. You've gone from saying I was managing partner to suddenly you've got, I don't know how many sentences that was, 2 or 3 sentences to explain. Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with it?
It does take time. So I think of it as actually an interesting challenge, but also a wonderful opportunity because now I'm actually giving them a platform to know me rather than just this faceless corporate being. Yeah, it's an opportunity.
Yes, it's a bit uncomfortable for people, right? People who...
Super uncomfortable. Super uncomfortable. So I've had some time with this discomfort, I guess, right? And it is something that is very revealing for yourself because then you have to tear down the corporate crutches that you have built your career on, that you've built your own rhetoric and your narrative on.
Yeah. I guess a challenge that we hear a lot from people is that they've maybe held on to the prestige of a job title in a company and suddenly being without that and having to explain it is kind of...
I mean, look, this is definitely a no judgment space, right? Because I think there is the prestige, but we all also know there's a lot that goes on with the title that you hold, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there's comfort because then we can be lazy.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say that. I think previously when I worked for a company, it was lazy. It was easy just to say, oh yeah, that's what I do. Like moving on.
Yes.
And now it's sort of a longer explanation and it's harder to explain.
But then if you think about it, I mean, like, it also offers you this wide and vast landscape to then look at maybe offerings you would never have thought about that you could be doing. Whereas before, your job title was such, and more often than not in most companies, is very defined.
Yeah, you got a fixed role.
What's
now your role
expected
can
of you.
be
anything. And that's scary. It is scary. I guess if we want to apply a little bit of neuroplasticity, right? It's, oh my God, it's exciting.
Yeah.
But then with that, obviously, you need to set some boundaries, right? You can do anything, but do you want to do everything? And most of us don't, right? So more often than not, we go into a second act because of a real need that we're trying to, whether it is about spending more time with loved ones, whether it's about spending more time on passion areas, or just having time for ourselves, right?
This process you mentioned, could you take us through your own journey going through this process?
100%. And it's something that I actually am doing with a few people right now. So to break it down, I have a 6 question kind of framework, right? But just to make sure I really keep to the 6 questions, if you don't mind, I'm going to refer to it, right?
The list is coming out. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the first is, who am I for now, right? So who's your target audience? Sounds simple, but the simplest things are hard to answer. But so if you can be as specific as possible, even down to persona for some people, right? Exactly who is this person that you're trying to talk to, right? And then next, what are the problems that I want to solve, that I do solve? And try and be as simple or say it in plain English. Because all of us came from a corporate background, so without knowing it, we have corporate lexicon in our vocab. So, for instance, I say leaders have strategy, but maybe they don't really know how to translate it into real narratives that actually move people.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I come in. So the third question: what changes because I'm there? What changes because of my work?
I like that one.
Yeah. And that's where I guess imposter syndrome comes in as well. Because you're like, ooh, all of us feel a little bit cringy, talking about the value that we have. But if we cannot identify the value, then it'll be hard for us to move forward, right? So then I have to look at what are the situations, where I was pulled in, whether by my team members previously or by clients, when they may have talked to my team, but they still want to talk to me. And then also the other thing is I realized in the last 10 years in particular, I really help leaders in really high stakes situations, right? So preparing them for crisis. So that's why I came up with for myself. So number 4, why me? Why not somebody else? So it's basically the personal proof, beyond doubt. And this is where your background comes in. This is where your prior experience comes into play. So I've built teams. I've led teams through adversity. I've gone through COVID. I've built a team from 1 to 50. So I have all that behind me. So I listed down. And this is necessary because it'll come in handy as your proof points. Number 5. Now, this is a little bit philosophical sometimes. And it goes into then what will make you feel, I guess, I don't want to sound airy-fairy, but what will make you feel whole?
Yes.
Yeah.
Airy-fairy, but also really important, right?
So what do I, Naeema, stand for? And what will I not stand for? I will not stand for being a person who hides behind a brand. And therefore, I will make mistakes. But I know that I'll be able to own up to them because then I can come up with solutions for them. I know that I want to be in the hot seat with an executive or with a business owner and really help them figure things out myself so that I don't hide behind a team. I want to work with like-minded people who have the same values. And hopefully I get there. But to do that, I need to then display the values that I espouse to.
Very nice.
Yeah. And then lastly, now you've done all these simple things. Then you now need to figure out how can you say all of that in the simplest way possible. Yeah. And this is where you'll come up with draft after draft after draft. And a lot of us you can also use, AI tools, but I would probably say try out certain, phrases and sentences first before you go to AI.
Yeah. Because
AI can't define you for you. They can only help you refine what you have defined. Yeah. So that's a simplest way that I can break down the process.
So there's a lot to remember. I think we ought to put this in the show notes or something, or the questions so that people can easily refer to them. And just your point on AI, to add to that, like I've been using AI to brainstorm this for myself. And I find it really helpful as a brainstorming buddy, but nothing is better than
a person.
So conversations with you have been far more helpful than Claude or ChatGPT have ever been.
I think because an AI tool can only be helpful in the sense that it's feeding off algorithms, right? And it's feeding off other people's truths.
Yes.
Or other people's inputs, including yours. And therefore, it's not really original.
Yes.
So I tend to think that in this AI world, actually, there's going to be a lot more currency placed in these engagements that we have.
So how about if someone comes to you and says, right, my second act is not that simple. I'm doing a bit of this, bit of that, bit of that. I mean, plenty of people they're building these portfolio careers.
Yeah, I mean, portfolio careers, and I have one as well. I can't lie to you. It is a challenge, right? But I think one thing that we can do is really start really piecing the value that runs through across all that you do. So for instance, I'm going to take myself again. I'm so sorry, but it's the most real example for me.
Yeah.
So I run the marketing room, which is really about embedding senior marketing resources within companies. And I started the reset practice, which is really about bringing clarity to narratives and translating into content and helping them with delivery and also making companies and leaders ready. They sound very different. But fundamentally, it's all about trust and peeling away the noise to actual outcomes that matter to a business. Those are the underlying threads that I have come up with for these two businesses.
When people give social media advice, we've done another episode about LinkedIn and how to put yourself out there on LinkedIn, but social media advice is often like, right, you've got 3 content pillars or 3 content buckets. But if you are doing quite a few different things and you do have this quite broad portfolio career, how are you then... It's hard.
Unfortunately,
you're confusing people.
Yeah, it is very confusing. So unfortunately, you have to choose. You know,
what you're speaking about more publicly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. When you're a speaker at an event, yes, they can have multi-hyphenates for you.
Yeah.
Right. But I think you do need to anchor yourself to one pillar. And then within
just
that,
one?
I mean, one pillar, when I say one pillar, one key offering that you want to, because or else it's too scattered.
Yeah.
Essentially, you can use it just as a thought leadership engine. And then that gives you a little bit more leeway to then focus on the value that I was talking about. And then coming up with pillars that support those values. But it gets a little bit more tricky when you want to use it as a sales engine. If your social media is a sales engine, unfortunately, you have to choose one thing. Because you can't be known for everything. And hopefully in your second act, your revenue generator does align as well in terms of who you are as a person. If it doesn't, then maybe you have to rethink it again.
If someone is starting a second act and they want to do something that they actually don't have direct experience in, how can they be clever with their messaging to show the value they can bring to this new thing?
Bring out aspects from their past lives that would actually be crucial in the areas that they want to delve into. So for instance, if it's they are passionate about helping seniors and maybe they don't have specific experience with that's concerned, but maybe they have been involved in, let's say, technologies or solutions that helped, mobility. That could be something. 2, they could talk about how maybe they're looking for the possibility of being involved in organizations where they could help build from the ground up, solutions for the elderly. Then maybe they can then talk about their organizational, experience in building teams, for instance. So I think there are many ways that they can talk through it.
It's just finding a way to make your skills sound transferable to whatever it is you're wanting to do next, right? So, actionable final question for you. If someone has been listening to this, watching this, and they're thinking, right, okay, we've covered a lot. Like, what can I do this week to start nailing my messaging and getting my story and proposition really clear?
I think number 1 is audience. I think just really figure out who is this audience that you want to serve, right? And once you have nailed the audience, generally, I think you can then go on to what is this offer that you have for this audience, which then will help you with your identity. So even though I tend to say identity, audience, offer, in actual fact, you start with audience first.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when you know who you're talking to, you can then refine what your offer and what is the outcome that you are delivering for them, right? And then with that, you can then start trying out what is this introduction that you can make for yourself and therefore that will form your identity.
Nice. Okay, Naeema, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pippa. That was fun.
Good.
I hope you had fun too.
I did. Thanks for listening to the Experience Exchange. I'm Pippa Woodhead. If you're thinking about or starting a second act career, have a look at the other episodes in this series. They've been designed with you in mind. And if you're in Singapore, come visit the Experience Exchange on Ang Siang Road, where these conversations happen in person. See you next time.